When was the last time you listened to an album? Many of us today don't really care for full albums as much for singles or full songs. However, an album is an interesting thing. You can use it to commentate on anything within any length of time. Speaking of length, most albums are usually 30 minutes to an hour long, but there are longer albums, some are so long you will age and die before it even starts. I am not kidding. Watch to the end to find out, I guess.
Because it's British. We like things being a bit shit.
We start off with the universal classic, Rubber Soul by the Beatles. This album is standard length for the time and today, and I don't think I have to explain the genres I used in this album, but this album is a classic. That's all I have to say. Moving on.
神说诸水之间要有空气。
This is the best Pink Floyd album. Fight me. Anyway, this is a usual double album length. I assume you know the story of this album and the story inside it. This album is easily the most famous double album of all time because the story, the absolutely amazing songs on this album, and is one of the most successful albums of all time. However, this album is technically unfinished. There are 5 main cuts from this album. Teach, When the Tigers Broke Free, Teach Teacher, or What Shall We Do Now? Most of these have been released on the 1983 album, The Final Cut, with Teach and Teach Teacher becoming one of the few and your possible pasts respectively. What Shall We Do Now can also be found in the soundtrack for the movie, as well as the live album Roger Waters' The Wall. There are also some cut demos and little trinkets, like Is Anyone Out There Part 2 and 3, and Death Disco. There is this fantastic video by Blue Tomorrows about this. Watch after mine, please. Thank you.
Sometimes it's hard to resist the urge to drive right off a fucking bridge. Oh look, there's one.
This album is perfect. That's it. This album is made by experimental and post-rock group Swans, known for perfecting crescendo-like music. This album is a little over 2 hours. This is partly due to the song Bring the Sun to Sing l'Ouverture being 34 minutes and 5 seconds. This isn't the only 2-hour long album by Swans. In fact, they made 5. The longest of which being
I am going to commit great crime. I'm going to bust nut in water tower.
Soundtracks for the Blind is supposed to be their last studio album before they reformed in 2010. It's a good album, but there are some bad songs. For example, the closer, Surrogate Drone, is just 2 minutes of the same guitar note. But many of the later entries in this list are like Surrogate Drone, but taken to the extreme, so yeah. Merzbient is a musician usually dabbling in noise and ambient music, his most famous albums being Noise Embryo and Pulse Demon. This album is more in the noise genre and more unknown. From what I've heard, it is a complete and utter chaos for 5 hours. Luckily these, I'm not reviewing these albums. Jandek is a strange fella. We have no idea who records his music or who his name is, or anything. All we have is the images in each of his albums. One of these is Ghost Passing, an album that consists of 2 instruments, a theremin and a piano, for 6 hours. And occasionally his voice is in there, but you have to wait like 4 hours to hear it. So yeah. For a good review of this album, I suggest Cactus Malpractice's review of it on his Worst Album Ever Made series. Asutenki's sunflower image is samples of Japanese weather stations. Interestingly, the tracks are split into 3 sections, named morning, afternoon, and evening, which puts the theme of this album as a music representation of a passage of 24 hours, which makes sense when considering the length, being 6 and a bit hours. At least this album is pleasant and doesn't give the feeling of existential dread. If you like existential dread, well...
Endless waters, I think to myself, is Pepper standing behind a fence? Or is Pepper actually the fence? Get on with it!
Everywhere at the End of Time is a 6th album odyssey by musician Leyland Kirby or The Caretaker. His music usually consists of samples of old ballroom music, hence his music sounded nostalgic almost. The album is all about the progression of dementia in the mind, in which the music in stage 1 is the most coherent, and stage 6 is complete anarchy. This is where the definition of album and compilation become blurry, because this album is 6 hours in one. A compilation is a certain thing going on with it, not by theme or story, but it could be by genre, certain different versions, or just albums in a certain era of a band's history. The 6 albums that consist of Endless at the End of Time were consecutive and have a theme all the way through, which could be weird for a compilation outside of the main discography. Also, sometimes the terms single and album are mixed up. For example, Jethro Tull's Thick as a Brick is a 43-minute long song which consists of 2 parts split due to vinyl limitations. By all definitions, it's a single, but it is called an album, in which I'm not complaining. Natural Snow Buildings are experimental French duo known for making post-rock and psychedelic-like ambience. Their albums are well acclaimed and them being very long. One of their best works, Dance of the Moon and Sun, is 2 hours long on its own, but their most positively received album, Daughter of Darkness, is possibly their most famous lengthwise, with the original release being on cassettes in 2009, which already came out to over 6 hours. The digital version as a bonus track called Psychic Navigation, which makes this album cross the 7-hour mark. This album by Merzbient is 10 hours, in which the same genres apply. This is another one of Merzbent's more unknown albums, given that Noise is a bit inaccessible. This could also be considered a compilation, since it is not made by specifically one person. In fact, no band is mentioned, just various artists. It is the same sort of genre as Merzbient does, just not as chaotic almost. It is also 10 hours. I think Merzbient is where I would start to think, how is anyone supposed to get through these? PC3 is no stranger to long music. This song topped another one of their songs called In the Garden, which is 3 hours long. This song is easily their most famous album, since it is called a song, but it is called an album on streaming services. It's like the Thick as a Brick problem again. The Flaming Lips is a famous band known for bizarre song titles and the electronic sound of some of their songs, like Yoshimi Bows the Pink Robots and War of the Mystics. On Halloween 2011, they decided to make a 24-hour-long song called Seven Skies H3, which is a file, which is encased in a real human skull. 3 years later, in 2014, they released a double LP version, so I guess to make it more accessible. Despite the length, he will have distinguishing parts with drum freakouts, ambient drones, and electronic freakouts. Expect noise, drone, and ambient to be in this a lot, since it is nearly impossible to make a coherent album that is 6 more hours long without those elements. This album consists of 5 songs called cantos. The first 4 cantos are the usual length if you think 20 minutes is usual. However, Canto 5, Meditation on Wage Labour and the Death of the Album, is 29 hours long. This is responsible for most of the album's length. It consists of multiple sections of piano. Apparently, this is a commentary on how MP3 files will bring the death of the album, hence half of the name. PC3 didn't stop there with the rise and fall of Bossanova. 4 years later, they released another song that is over 20 hours longer than the previous one. However, when it was released, the Guinness Book of World Records didn't change it when it was released, even though it far and away has beaten it. Steve Lieberman is a musician that, at the time where he started this project, he was suffering from leukemia. Fearing that he may die, he wanted to fulfill his dream of obtaining a world record. He decided to go for the longest song. When he finished it, it clocked in at 34.5 hours, easily beating Onistwave Experiment number 33. Rest in peace to Steve Lieberman. Experimental musician Aki has released the first song on the album Siha Hanagai, or Downtown in English. Sorry if I butchered that name. He stated that he will add 1 track every day until 2021, in which it turned into a 90-track Goliath of an album lasting 38 hours. He has also done the same for another album, but it doesn't even hold a candle to Downtown. This album is a collection of 7 drone pieces of, well, drone, lasting 8 hours each. However, the pitch of these strings are so low, laptop speakers or even some headphones to make this album completely inaudible to some people.
Well, darling.
Yes, we smell sausage. You play it.
This album's context is quite simple. This is a collection of 3-hour-long samples of the radio station of the same name, from broadcasts from 1985 to 2015. This culminates in a 131-day album. They also later released a sort of greatest hits called The Radio Show, The Golden Age of Over the Edge. Beyond this point, these albums become kind of hard to find. This album is simple. It is a project by JLIAT, or James Whitehead, in which it is a full terabyte of harsh noise, and that's it. ITB noise would be put into 233 CD discs, encased into a box, each disc containing 1 MP3 file with a size of 4 GB. When added up, results in a terabyte. John Cage is a well-known experimental musician for making a song called 4 minutes 33 seconds, in which it is 4 minutes and 33 seconds of just silence. A lesser-known work is As Slow as Possible, also known as Organ 2, in which the notation is supposed to be played as slow as it possibly can, in which it usually comes out to 20 to 70 minutes. However, in the St. Burkhardi Church in Halberstadt, sorry if I butchered that as well, has been played this song since the year 2000 and will not stop until the year 2640. This album is one song, and it's a collection of singing bowls and meditative instruments. It started on the last day of 1999 and will not end until the third millennium. To see it live, it is currently in the Trinity Buoy Wharf in London, or you can listen to it live online. So that's it. Thank you for... There is a band called Ball of Heaven. It consists of two members, Clayton Counts and Neil Keener. They started their journey in 2008 with 001 Weed Problem, in which they have released many albums, some having absolutely absurd lengths. For example, 001 Weed Problem is 44 minutes, 28 Even to the Edge of Doom is nearly a day long, 45 The Wicked Cease from Struggling is a full week long, 119 The Chosen Priest and Apostle of Infinite Space is 5 months long, 209 Blur with Tears and Suffering Beyond Hope is 6 months, 210 Like a Wall in which an insect lives and gnaws is 6 years. All of these works easily trump IGB Noise and Over the Edge Radio, and this isn't even their longest album. 310 Omega Sigma Rho times 0 opening parentheses 2 to the 18th times 15 to the 18th closing parentheses P times K times K times K was released on 13th of July 2014, and it's 3.43 times 10 to the 47 years long. This is the full number on screen. This equates to 100 quadrillion years. For context, the observable universe has lived for nearly 14 billion years, which this album is around 4.192 times 10 to the 37 years longer. The longest album I have ever listened to is Swans Are Dead Live 95 to 97, which is 2 hours, 23 minutes and a second. The first MP3 file of 310 is 26 hours, 37 minutes and 53 seconds. You can find it on YouTube. You have to listen to Swans Are Dead in its entirety over 11 times to conquer the first MP3 file. Imagine how many times Swans Are Dead albums would equal the entire album. Imagine how many MP3 files are used. If you started this album when the Big Bang starts and played it to today, it would have barely started. It wouldn't have barely started when Niagara Falls arose away. It would have barely started when humanity faced its extinction. It wouldn't have begun at all when the sun expands, swallows the earth. This album is incomprehensible to the human mind, any mind. It is so incomprehensibly large that if an artist wants to make an album this long, but to be more traditional, they will give up immediately, because there is no subject matter to cover such a runtime, let alone the recording and production time, or even considering how much space it will take up on the internet. It is impossible. The last few entries have been stretching it when it comes to music. I'm pretty generous. Even though some can drone is 2 minutes at the same note, even though some flower image is samples of a weather program, and even though harsh noise can be made to sound like music, it is all music to me. But some people believe that noise and ambient is not music, and I do see why they have that opinion. Also, 310 might not be the longest album, but I'm not sure whether one or the other is longer. But listen to the stuff you know if a certain genre is not for you. But of course branch out to different stuff. You might find a new favorite song or album. So to answer the question, what is the longest album? I believe it's 310, but I may be wrong. Thank you for watching. See ya.